Good evening, we are from Group 2. To all our fellow panelists and audience, first of all, I would like to thank you all for being here in this forum to hear our discussion topics today, does sex education relevant in Malaysia? Before we start, relevant means something that is closely connected, appropriate, and should be considered linked together. Based on the 2015 survey that was made by our health ministry, 35% of Malaysia female youth believe that having sex for the first time doesn't lead to a pregnancy, and 1 in 5 of Malaysians believe that STI could be transmitted by mosquito. There's more and more research about related topics, and most of it shows that our youngest generation nowadays doesn't have a proper understanding about their body function as well as the development of a pregnancy. Most claim that this is mainly due to the sexual education is not well implemented in Malaysia. Without wasting more time, I would like to ask our first panelist about her opinion on this topic. Do you think sexual education is relevant in Malaysia, Ms. Ani?
Thank you, Mr. Jun. I would say that sex education is relevant in Malaysia. Generally, when we talk about sexual education, most of the communities always thought it is all about teaching children or teenagers on how to do sex. No, this is absolutely incorrect. As stated by WHO 2006, children's and teenagers' sexual education encompasses dimensions of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being concerning sexuality. Today, I would like to emphasize more on sexual education in early childhood. In this stage, sex education provides children with a safe environment by learning the correct names for parts of the body, understanding principles of human reproduction, family and interpersonal relationship, and also learn about safety, prevention, and sexual and reporting of sexual abuse. The significance of this is children themselves recognize and are aware of this relationship long before they act on their sexuality, and therefore they need the skills and knowledge to understand this matter. Nowadays, there are numbers of interviews in mass media about children being molested, but they did not even know or realize what had happened to them. Simply put, on early exposure about sexuality is important to increase their awareness.
So, from Ms. Ani told us that it is necessary to expose children to sexual education in early childhood so they will know what is exactly happening when someone sexually harasses them. In the same time, they will be able to report others immediately and seek for assistance. Ms. Ani also mentioned that sex education not only about the action, but also prepare the young girl mentally and emotionally about sex. Ms. Ada, I believe you have more to add on this topic. With a focus on the adolescent and young and adults, is sexual education relevant for them as well in Malaysia?
Before I go any further, my sincere thanks to Mr. Jun for giving me that question. I truly agree that sexual education is very influential and relevant to them. WHO defines adolescents as those between the ages of 10 and 19 with specific health and developmental needs and rights. Sex education is very crucial because of the positive effects, including increasing young people's knowledge and also improving their attitudes related to sexual and reproductive health and behaviors. We need to know that it doesn't increase the activity or sexual risk-taking behavior or any HIV infection rates. If we want adolescents to understand the practice of healthy sexual attitudes, we must first give them a thorough education. However, Malaysia doesn't have a good implementation of sexual education that follows the UNESCO guidelines, as research by UKM states that 90% of the respondents agreed that sex education had not been taught in Malaysia schools and the information regarding them is vague. Effective ways are needed to motivate adolescents to practice self-protective sexual behaviors to decrease the risk of unplanned pregnancy and transmission of STDs. Thus, by doing so, teenagers have exposure and can gain the relevant information that can help them in their own decision-making and prevent them from being involved in any social issues. Correct usage of contraception, such as condom, contraceptive pill, and diaphragm must be expressed with details because adolescents have queries and questions and they need to learn from trustable sources rather than online knowledge. This is because the misuse of contraception can lead to more serious repercussions such as higher chances of premarital pregnancies that will affect the adolescent's life. Thus, I truly believe adolescents have the rights for the knowledge of their sexual and reproductive health and the desperate need for the implementation of very good sexual education to provide accurate, complete, and also consistent information regarding them.
From what we heard by our two panelists, sexual education is said to be important not only in children, teenagers, and even adults. Since for adults, sexual education is more on the proper use of prevention in order to avoid any unwanted incidents. Mainly, it is also to motivate the adolescent to have better self-protective sexual behavior. Not only that, this way, eventually, our country will be able to reduce the risk of a premature pregnancy occurrence. So how about your opinions regarding sexual education, Miss Anis? Do you think it's relevant to have it too in Malaysia?
Thank you, moderator. Regarding this issue, I would say that I oppose with the sex education to be incorporated as one of the subject if it has to be at early stage. Not to deny, but sex education in adults likely seem more relevant to have it. But as for children, still some of the young might have not yet exposed with knowledge related sex. In my general view, there is a high possibility that they would tend to know more and more. Basically, learning about sex before they mature might even only ignite their curiosity to know further of what they have learned. Hence, their minds might be influenced to watch even more pornographic clips on the internet or read more erotic books, which could lead to even more immoral behaviors. Conscious or not, they tend to have pornographic addiction in future. Eventually, the implementation of sex education will only lead some of the teens to sexual experimentation when curiosity arises. Thus, the risk to social and critical issues like rape, baby dumping, or being pregnant before marriage, and many more could happen even serious. Plus, regarding the ideas such as condom, as mentioned by Ada, it might also give options to some teens to play safe. Indirectly, the minds of teenagers may arm with too much of knowledge about safe sex without realize that they may engaging in casual sex too often.
So from Miss Anis simply say that she mentioning implementing sexual education might be too advanced for those who are still too young. Plus, having too much knowledge in their age about this topic might further trigger their curiosity to engage in risk behavior. How about Miss BALQIS? What do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Tan Wei Jun. I could not agree more to Ms. Hani's and Ms. Ada's statement. I think sexual education is relevant to be developed in Malaysia. Early exposure regarding this topic is vital to prevent unwanted circumstances. The adolescents have no chance to voice out their misunderstanding, mainly on self-awareness. This is where the parents' role comes in, because everything starts from home. Accurate knowledge about sexual education is being provided by the parents. Sexual education granted through proper channels such as school, a person with credential, and even psychologists might be more eligible to give advice. This is not to disclose negative thinking or ideas at such young age as mentioned by Ms. Anis. Other than that, boys' need for sexual education are usually looked down upon, even though they can be harassed as well. We have to change the stigma because the male gender should be the protector, not the predator. In school, the teachers may not be able to focus on one child, and the said child will be left ignored and have questions. So this is why the parents plays a very crucial part in educating their children as well. Do not teach them to keep secrets no matter the situation. Instruct them not to touch other people's private part. This is something that tends to slip from the parents' mind. Make them learn to say no. Do not ignore child questions about sex as they will lose their support. Being open is protecting. At the same time, it will help them to be more open with other problems. Thank you.
So Ms. BALQIS thinks that it's relevant as well. At the same time, she is more emphasizing on the role of parent in this topic. We could not deny the role of parent is really vital in this issue as the children is maybe more comfortable to talk with the parent. Well, lately, there is a news about a principal being accused of sexual grooming a male student and has been removed from the school. Miss Ada, do you think that this kind of situation happened is due to lack of sex education in Malaysia or maybe as well other factors?
That is a very good question, Mr. Jun. For school teenagers, most of them have a risk for early sexual activity because of the less parental supervision in terms of the life at school, less overall involvement with parents, and higher alcohol exposure and drugs. This is because most of the time spent at schools is for studying and also learning new things. However, good sexual education can alleviate this issue through active involvement of the school's community to tackle key areas of concerns regarding the sexual and reproductive health of students, engaging more proactively by inviting NGOs to talk in depth about sexual health is a responsibility for the school's committee. As national sexuality education is at an impasse, NGOs and school communities should work hand in hand to exchange experience and provide faster actions and also a very safe environment in schools to avoid this problem from happening again. Thank you, Mr. Jun.
Ms. BALQIS, what is your opinion about homeschool children?
As for homeschool children, they tend to have less social skill compared to those going to school. Most parents are conservative, does not bother to hire certified tutor to teach sexual education because they deem it unnecessary and shameful. Some are embarrassed but hypocrite because they want their child to be educated but make no effort. The present mindset could make it worse for their children and would lead them astray. Compared to talking about it for educational purposes, teenagers or children is being encouraged by inappropriate TV shows. If the adolescents only understand that sex is just a physical intercourse, they may lose their respect to themselves and others. This topic should be discussed in an open, mature, and peaceful surrounding. However, sexual education is teachable, but depending on the implementation is solely on the effort. In my opinion, sexual awareness education is a more appropriate title to use that can encourage those who are unsure of themselves. Although I do admit that this matter is still in the grey area for Malaysian. Thank you.
Ms. Anis, as from the previous point that you have mentioned, you seem to oppose other view regarding sexual education. Might we know further why do you think so?
Well, so far as I see from everyone's point, I know that there are good sides in having sex education. As from my previous point of view, I would like to add further where I still think would be better way to not have it since some children and teenagers have been already advanced to be exposed to sex-related materials through mass media in this modern era today. Well, I'm not saying sex education is fully not important, but I do believe that the rules related to sexuality actually had been mentioned or included in many good ways of perspective and thoughts, even in different religions. Especially in Islam, sexuality indeed has prominent place in the teachings from the Quran as well as in Hadith with regards to the rights and forbidden. Apart from religion, a lot of reports of sexual abuse could actually also come from the people who engage in the education field related to sex education. Believe it or not, educators could turn into predators without us aware. Thus, I somehow feel it is not safe and too risky for our young generations to learn. As despite being the same age, no children are alike. Some are more matured while some are still childish, far away from sexual knowledge. But in my view, if sex education is to be implemented, it should be done at least students in primary schools at the second level to be specific in year 5 and year 6, or in secondary schools, or can be also done during the years in college or university. Plus, since this issue is considered as a sensitive topic, I think it would be best to suggest as if the sex education curriculum could be tailored according to the age of the child and classes be held separately between the gender in order to avoid any indecent behaviors.
Referring to Ms. Ani's opinions, the way I see things is that curiosity exists in everybody. No matter if they are young or old, they keep continuing to explore what they feel they want to know. Furthermore, I do agree that they're already exposed to sex-related materials through online media. However, online media doesn't necessarily provide age-appropriate and in fact may provide biased and distorted message. This further complicates them to distinguish between inaccurate and accurate information. Thus, here is where sexual education exists to guide them to be on the right path. Now, let's look at the religious perspective. I believe that religions play a unique role in supporting sexual education. Young people might seek moral guidance that is relevant to their life about sexuality. According to UNESCO 2009, many faith communities known from experience and numerous studies shows that young people tend to delay mature sexual activity when they receive sex education. As we all are aware, the community tend to think sex topic is a taboo, but then we cannot disagree on sex is one of the basic human needs. In essence, these sexual education topics will be introduced gradually, in line with the age and evolving capacity of the child or teenagers. Hence, as a concerned community, we have to be open-minded. Because if it's not us to support this, then who would be?
Well, to wrap up our forum discussion today, I can say that most of our panelists are thinking that sex education is relevant to the development of Malaysia. Still, for me, it depends to choose since there are good side and bad side as we discussed. Third, there are still a lot of challenges to implementing and incorporating sex education widely in our current education system. Most of us admit that there is important topics that are relevant not only for the adults but also for the young generation due to the aroused cases from the increasing number of the sexuality problem among nowadays youth. Finally, we have come to our end of the forum discussion today, and I would like to special thanks to our panelists for contributing ideas and share their thoughts and opinions related to sex education. Till we will meet again next time, everyone. Thank you, everyone.